I can think of things to talk about. My parents joined the Grange somewhere in the late 40s or the early 1950s, and they began to take part in Grange meetings and things like that. And I remember one of the things, my father made up a little board about yay long and printed Vinland Grange Fair on it and nailed it around on light poles and things like that. My father died unexpectedly overnight in the summer of 1952, and so my mother continued on in Grange after that.
That was kind of unusual, wasn't it, to have a woman on do the Grange board and such?
Well, Mom was a secretary. And she was secretary for years. And then for a while, Jim Wiggins and Marie Howard used to stop by. When in the earlier time, my father would stop by and pick up Marie Wiggins, Marie Howard, who'd lost her husband too. And we used to pick up Marie Wiggins and bring her to the Grange meeting. And then Jim Wiggins, when they got married, Jim would stop by and pick up my mother since she was a widow, and they come to the Grange meetings. And they did that for a long period of time. Everybody was a regular member and showed up at every meeting.
Yeah.
In the later days, my mother got to the place where she didn't want to drive, so I'd bring her down to the Grange meeting. And Herb Hoskison was still the master. And they began to go through all their ritual, and they only had one stove up there to keep that place warm in the wintertime. And so they had an outside gatekeeper and an inside gatekeeper, and if you come late, you had to knock on the door, and the outside gatekeeper had to let you in. Then you had to go in and report to the inside gatekeeper, and then you had to go before the master and do some ritual to be admitted into the meeting. And so...
Paid not to be late, did it?
No. And so they went through this ceremony, and they had to close the inner door, and it was just standing out there by itself, and they'd close the inner door, and for the meeting to be in session, and all of a sudden you'd hear this old door squeaking as it rolled back open, and they went through all the meetings, and it was just a formality, and then everybody kind of brought some food, and then they sit down and ate after the meeting was over with. And I think that was the main attraction to the meeting in the later part of the time. And then it just finally got, so Herb Hoskison was gone, and the real leaders began to die off, and it just got weaker and weaker, and they just finally quit. Because it was hard for them to climb that concrete stairway up the back of that old building where they had the Grange meetings. But I remember, I don't know when it was, they had a groundhog supper, and they served pancakes and sausage, and they made them and they had that groundhog supper down in what I'd say on the first level there, and they opened that up, and people come in and had that for fundraisers. But Mom always come to all the fairs, and we did, my brother and I, and our families come to the fair. And
what do you remember about the earlier ones? We've been told a lot about it being kind of the social event of the season.
At the fair? Yes. Yeah, they all come and would sit around on chairs or benches underneath of a tree and just visit. And I used to come down because I knew a lot of the men, Frank Hagerman or Clarence Hagerman and all those kind of guys, and you could just sit down and talk to them, and they'd tell you all kinds of stories. It was a wonderful experience.
Yeah. Just
listening to them, because his sister was my 7th and 8th grade teacher at Fairview, Faye Day. Faye Hagerman Day was my 7th and 8th grade, 3 and 2, 5, 6th, 7th, and 8th. She taught me 3 years in school before I went to junior high.
It was a big connection. That was a big connection.
Yes.
What? You know, we hear about the Grange too. Is why was it such an advantage to join the Grange?
Well, they had insurance as one thing. That was the main thing that I remember. And Oaks Temple used to be the insurance agent. Woodrow Sturdy was for a while, back in the earlier time, and then Oaks Temple, how he became selling the insurance, I don't know, but my parents had insurance through the Grange, and I think it was cheaper and better coverage or something for agriculture.
Okay.
But I really don't remember what all the Grange stood for, but I knew it was kind of an organization that discussed matters, and they didn't want anybody else to know what they were talking about.
Yeah. So do you still come down to the fair every year?
Yes. Yeah. This is our 3rd night. We come down at least 2 nights, and we always here for chicken and noodles on Friday night.
Yeah.
But Roger Pine, who's our senator, is to be here tonight. And so we come down. Well, Norman and I were his campaign chairman to be for Douglas County. And so we come down to be here with him because he's in kind of, I shouldn't say strange territory, but he don't know a lot of people here.
Yeah, well, he's Lawrence kind of person.
So anyway, but we come down and go to the tractor pull and watch the music events.
It's still important to you?
Oh, yes. Yeah. And our kids, we brought our kids down, and they were in the pet parades and, you know, the bicycle car, decorated bicycles and tricycles, and they love to do that kind of stuff. So,
well, it's still important.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Mr. Leary.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay. Okay, Jean Moore, right?
That's right.
And if you'll just tell me about you and the fair.
Well, my first time at the fair was in 1967, and where I met my husband, Jerry Moore. And we had moved into the neighborhood a year before and was unable to come to the fair, but we started out in 67. By 68, I was sitting at the tractor pull table, helping with the tractor pull, and I've been in it ever since. And not the tractor pull, but in the fair.
In the fair.
Then in 1985, Jerry, my husband, was. We were elected to the board. We've been in the board ever since.
Yeah.
Or secretary. I'm secretary now.
So what are you doing exactly now?
I have manned the hop stand since 88, I think, something like that, 87, 88. And I enjoy the kids.
Yeah.
The finger painting, I want this. You have to figure out where that finger is pointing, and sometimes you have a time. And they get aggravated with you. They'll say, no. and you say, okay. Now what shelf is it on, you know? That one.
Oh, yeah.
You know. And then, of course, the teenagers come up and say, are you still working here? I remember when you got after us when we were little kids, you know. And so, yeah, it's been quite a bit of fun. One young man has been at our booth quite a bit this week. And he said the other day, he said, you worked with my mom, didn't you? And I said, yes. And he said, and I understand that you were there when my mom went into labor.
Oh.
I remember that too. So he said, we're kind of like family.
Yeah, but you were there early on. Okay. Why do you think that the fair stayed around for 100 years? You've been involved with it. But...
Because I think we like getting together as a community family.
Yeah.
I really do. And it's fun. It's tiring, but it's fun. And being in the top stand 3 days is a challenge.
Yeah. Especially in this heat.
Yes. We do have fans, though.
Yeah.
And it's kind of gotten to a family thing too, because my kids work in there. Mary Gensler and her daughter and granddaughter work in there.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a family run thing.
Yeah.
We keep saying we're trying to get it so that the kids will know how to do it when we step down.
Yeah.
One of the big memories I have, though, is of the table under the tree with all the elderly gentlemen sitting at it, visiting. We don't have that anymore. And they're all gone, I guess. So, I miss that. I miss the oldsters coming around and giving us a little trouble and telling us what we're doing that we shouldn't be and what we should be doing, you know.
Oh yeah.
But that was helpful.
That was it.
Helpful.
Jerry or Jean, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now what